Welcome to our final day of the NOA 69th Annual National Conference, and welcome to this morning's session entitled Voice and Opera Curricula, Training for Sustainable Careers, Part 2. And the reason why this is Part 2 is because earlier this spring, the National Opera Association and Opera America came together, and we decided that it would be really wonderful to initiate a series of hybrid sessions for thoughtful discourse focused on recent conversation inside Opera America's Performer Development Forum surrounding the most current standards for pursuing a career in operatic vocal performance with opera educators across the country. And the first part in this series was a webinar that was extremely insightful. And I just want to share that this partnership and collaboration that we have with Opera America through this series also has a survey that is part of the series, asking you some open-ended questions, some questions that are a little bit more closed, just to get a better sense of where you are inside of your own home and environment, learning environment. And that survey was shared through the announcements email that you received this morning. And I highly encourage you to fill it out. It is anonymous. And what we hope is that from that survey, data will be collected that can then be shared with our constituents across both organizations. But here for our members, we hope that it turns into a vital document that you can utilize to advocate for your respective departments inside of your institutions as you're working through curriculum mapping and other things associated with enhancing the student experiences inside of your schools. It's my pleasure at this time to welcome our Senior Artist Development Manager at Opera America, who's been working closely with us, just to say a few words of welcome to you as well on behalf of our sibling organization, Pamela Jones.
Thank you. Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you at this conference. This is my second conference. I've been sharing with people. It's my second conference as a big girl. My second National Opera Association conference as an adult. I don't want to say how many years ago I actually competed in the competition twice and won the Legacy Award twice. So today I'm on the other side of the judging table. I just wanted to thank you so much for engaging in this work with Opera America. The National Opera Association and Opera America's collaborative efforts are so valuable to us. The members of the Performer Development Network calls, those Zoom calls that happen every month, who are National Opera Association members, bring such richness to the discussions, such wisdom, insight. We appreciate Kirk, we appreciate Carlene, we appreciate Isai, we appreciate Lee, I don't know where Lee is, and Jonathan Pape, and all of you who attend. And this discussion is the second part of a three-part discussion. The first part happened September 14th. The video recording of that session is going to be available to the public very soon. It's already available to Opera America members and National Opera Association members, but that link we'll be sharing with you as a resource soon, too. I just wanted to say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, right? Because those of us who came up through the ranks years ago, it's like we've got into the system, the work system, and I wish I had known this, or I wish I had known that. These discussions are so important, and I just want to thank each and every one of you for partaking in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And with that, I hand it over to our moderator, Carlene Graham.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to see you. And again, my thanks to everyone at NOA and also Pam at Opera America, who I often interact with and does a wonderful job leading the Performer Development Network. So thank you for all the work you do. Thank you very much. And it's just been wonderful to connect with everyone, and I'm very excited to be at this table with just such a depth and breadth of experience and knowledge and creativity and passion and love and care for what they do, as all of you often do as well. I wanted to, because this is the second part of a series of 3 discussions, I just want to just very briefly summarize what the previous panel covered very loosely, and I really encourage you to go in and watch it when it becomes available. They talked, the panel in September talked a little bit about sustainability in opera, what allows someone to sustain a career, what allows them to, to really fully, to live their full professional life in the performing arts, ways that the opera and performing arts landscape is changing. That could be an entire convention in itself. What the industry needs from what the industry needs from the training programs that are feeding into the industry, and likewise what the training programs are needing from the schools that are feeding into that, and we'll dovetail today with that a bit. How schools might connect with companies and other parts of the industry, and we'll dovetail with that as well today. Alternate career paths. We talked a bit about that in our affinity group, our graduate program affinity group, which was an awesome group yesterday. Accessibility to young artist programs. What are the barriers and whatnot? I think that feeds also oftentimes into what are the barriers into attending school. What are the barriers to studying music? And then there was a very strong emphasis overall in the discussion about the development of humanity, like really allowing individuals to be full human beings and be autonomous. We've talked already this morning about autonomous artists and autonomous individuals, and so we'll weave that in today a little bit as well. And so we're going to try to focus more of today's discussion because most of you are in higher ed programs, even though many of you do other things. And so we're going to focus today a little bit more on curriculum and training for undergraduate and graduate students. And we all know that the performing arts industry and higher education are undergoing unprecedented shifts and transformations. However, we've also witnessed incredible resilience and creativity emerge in response to an array of humanitarian, societal, and economic challenges that continue to impact our world. And so since many of us are affiliated with institutions, we know that our students today are different in many ways than maybe they were 10 years ago. While it's easy to sometimes bemoan the changes, our beloved students have rightfully demanded that traditional institutions prioritize diversity and inclusion, climate change, mental wellness, and overall life balance. They also are rightfully concerned about the high cost of education and how much debt they will carry or not carry into after they complete their formal education. They expect a return on their investment, the old ORI. It's a big word, right? So with that, we have some questions, and I'm going to also, I want this to be a fluid discussion, and if you have a question or a comment, raise your hand and we'll try to include. I don't want to wait till the very, very end to ask all the questions, but if there's something you would, like to interject or add, raise your hand and we'll try to include. We just want to be mindful. There's a lot to say, and we want to give plenty of time to cover as much as we can. So, First of all, I'd like everyone to introduce themselves and to tell us a little bit about, you know, what you're doing now, where your affiliation, and what, maybe briefly, what's important about why are you in this, why are you teaching, why are you mentoring, why are you educating, why is it important to you? Gordon?
Good morning. Can you hear me? Yes. Hi. My name is Gordon Hawkins. I'm a professor of voice here at Arizona State University. I serve on numerous committees. I'm sure you know what that means. Personnel committee, artistic committee, provost. So it's a lot of adjustments mentally, but I'm embracing it. And when I get out of line, Professor Damaris reminds me where I'm supposed to be. I'm a professional singer, opera. My career has spanned over 4 decades. I'll leave the roles, all the Verdi Wagner stuff. I teach and do a lot of master classes all over, like all of us. I'm a voice teacher, coach at Santa Fe during the summer, and have done some things in St. Louis as well. And I'm here to learn more than I am to talk. I'm that generation, I was taught by the old dinosaurs, Boris Goldovsky and all of those wonderful people that taught me to respect and love what it is that I do and why it was worth living on the road 10 months out of a year. So that's what I'm here. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hi. Hi, I'm Kristen Roach. I am the founding music director of Alamo City Opera, and I've been in higher education as a coach and conductor for almost 30 years, most of that in San Antonio, Texas, the last 3 years at Lawrence University in Appleton, Wisconsin. Primarily, my work has been with undergraduate singers and a few graduates. Most of my work has been basic music literacy. And I see lots of nods, so I'm not alone. So Carlene asked what's important to me. What's important to me is every singer not just singers, I teach pianists too, and conductors. Everybody who comes through my studio, I hope that they will learn, first of all, how they learn, what they're already good at, playing to their strengths, and then really frank discussions about what they should accomplish in their time in whatever little world we're in, whether that's at the university or in a summer program. And then also the goal in my teaching is to teach myself out of a job where you are always welcome to come back, but you should not need me after our time together. You should be able, any piece of music that comes across your path, you should know what to do with it. You should be able to open it, and if you cannot sight read it, you should be able to know the steps to fully digest it, bring it to life on your own, and have something to say with it to an audience. So that's the goal.
Hi everyone, my name is Mo Zhou, no middle name. I'm originally from China. I'm a stage director. I've been on faculty at University of Michigan for the past 2 years. I also freelance, so I've been directing the Minnesota Opera, Santa Fe, Glimmer Glass, all those companies. What is important to me, I would like to share 2 things. I came to this country as 18 years old, little Chinese girl, thinking I was going to law school. Somehow fell in love with directing. But when I started out, there was no such word called diversity inclusion. So I couldn't find any job on Broadway, off-Broadway. Somehow there's this very fun industry called opera. They saw something in me and then took a chance on me. And before I even realized I have build this career, let's not put adjective to that. So I feel like opera, specifically opera in North America, has become such a crucial identity of who I am right now. They built and shaped me. So that's why I feel like getting into education is my way to pay back for what they have invested in me and grow and reshape with the industry together. As an educator, what I found, we are in a very, very interesting phase, post-pandemic world. So I really believe we need to celebrate the brilliance of every performer and then really give them the permission to be an autonomous and confident performer and leader in every shape or form. So it's really an honor to be here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dean Anthony. I am a retired tumbling tenor. I am also the director of opera at the Brevard Music Center. Grateful for that opportunity and grateful to the people in this room that I see that started that. And I'm also the producing director at Knoxville Opera, as well as Roanoke Opera, and a couple of other ones are going to fall into place. And I'm an educator, sure, in my way. I'm a cultivator. I like to cultivate. I want to guide. Guiding's the big thing for me. Mentoring, of course. And I think what I'm finding in my many years of this, which has been a while, and been grateful to be in this industry, but working with the companies that I'm working with are a step, our new step into out of summer graduate programs and those kinds of things. My mission is to be that kind of person that can help guide those people to that next step, to those companies where they need those young artists, those hungry, strong, brilliant singers. So that's just this new mission for me, is just to be that next step person to help guide the next generation to where we all got to be, where I got to be when I was in my 20s. And there's a lot of great people that crossed my path. You're talking about teachers, and had a lot of people guide me the right way and some the other way. Because I always say 90% of what I learned in this business was what not to do, to then make the choice of what to do. And I'm grateful for those, no matter how I look at it. But I'm honored and thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. And I didn't introduce myself, but I'm Carlene Graham, and I was a professor of opera at SUNY Potsdam for many years, and then went to Houston Grand Opera, where I ran the Community and Learning program at HGO, and now I'm Dean of Vocal Arts at Manhattan School of Music, and so it has education and mentoring has been in my blood my whole life, and so this is an important conversation for me as well. So I'd love to start off with, is in your various roles as artists and creators, educators, program directors, and mentors, describe what you're noticing about the students and emerging artists and professionals that with whom you're currently and very recently engaging with. We know pandemic has we know that that's a thing. But even perhaps before pandemic, going into pandemic, what are the changes that you're seeing when you're going and students are going into that next level or that next experience? What are you noticing about them? It can be both positive and concerning. It doesn't all have to be. But what comes to mind when you think about that? Dean?
Well, okay, so it's funny because it occurs at different levels. When I'm here teaching my undergrads in music theater or music teaching and learning or music and healing, what I notice straight away is how receptive they are to the possibility of what can be for them, but they're not completely sure of what direction things are, where they should, what should I do here, what should I do here, what should I do here? And being a child of the public education school system when I was growing up, the one thing that I noticed is how eager and insecure they are. And they need validation on a regular basis And even sometimes when I think you've got enough validation, right? You know you belong here, right? You know this is where you should be. They still don't believe it. So regardless of what I think as an individual in terms of what a student, an aspiring artist should be, I have to understand that the people that I'm educating still don't believe it. And they have to be reinforced with that every single day. It's amazing. And I'm not putting any judgment on that. It's as much a sign of the times as it is the sign of academia, right? You turn on a TV set or you listen to a radio, and you might want to turn your automobile back and go away from where all that conflict and noise is. And we have mileage on our meter. They don't. That's what I notice. I notice that they're in a car, they want to go someplace, they don't know where, they don't know how, and they're scared to death.
Fear is real.
My colleagues, Stephanie and Nathan are back there. Every day we see it. So I know what I had to overcome as an individual and still am overcoming. Imagine when they look uphill what they're looking at. And then you want them to get on a stage and project with confidence what it is. They need time. Baby, if I could do anything, if I had a wand, I'd give them more time. But we don't have more time. We have as much time as we can manage under the circumstances. That's what I say.
I'd love to, absolutely, if I may, because I wrote notes actually.
I'm so proud of you, Dean.
I think it's the well, what I've just seen and embraced as much as I can is an extremely high emotional reaction to everything, such as the absolute thrill and joy to see them walk into a room and go after the pandemic, and I get to work, and then it just kind of sometimes it goes into that fear place of, oh, I was told over Zoom what to do, I was told how to do it, I was told how to, they told me, but then is there performance practice? Do they have that core of getting up there and actually doing it? So watching that, and then having to be on the other side to either validate, encourage, and just go and do it, and that's been really powerful to see. And just, I will say for me personally, I don't believe I was allowed as much back in the day to show those emotions. I wasn't allowed to show those emotions back in the day when I walked in petrified to do my first thing with someone here or there. I walked in and went, okay, here we go. Yeah, and I just watched and learned, and so that's my 2 cents on that. But when they get that little bit of confidence back, that's the joy, and then they can find it. That's our job, and that's our job, is to let that happen, let those emotions go, and then see that fear and embrace it. Don't pressure. Pressure's rough. Just allow them to go, but. It's difficult when you're on a time scale of XYZ amount of days to get a show up, and you have to still do the work, but then you have to still cultivate, and you still have to be patient. So it's a new time, and it's pretty cool.
I think all of us can agree that we are seeing the generational effect of the removal of music in the schools. And it pays dividends not just in our own students who want to study music, what they show up already knowing, but also the audiences that we're performing for and the community involvement. Where I teach, I feel really fortunate that we have decolonized the musicology curriculum. We no longer teach a survey of Western music. We teach, that's a completely separate topic for another time. I'll meet you in the bar and we can talk about that. What it has meant for my own teaching, though, is I cannot assume anymore, for example, when they come in to work on a recitative by Mozart or Verdi, they don't necessarily know where Mozart and Verdi got it from. And I'm also cool with that because they are also learning about music of the Middle East and music of the Himalayas and other things that I didn't learn. The other thing that I'm really noticing is that in the search for individual identity and expression, whatever that might mean, my students are most comfortable in a group. And so they are much happier in their choir rehearsals, in their orchestra rehearsals, in their band rehearsals, in their voice studios, and creating an ensemble culture within the opera rehearsal is harder, right, because they're soloists for the most part. And creating that sense of team spirit is vital to our progress. And I feel fortunate that we're able to do that, but it weighs on me all the time when we are enfolding a new student for the first time who's been cast in something, that right away we bring them in as a member of the team. And I don't know that I thought that way 10 years ago.
I would like to raise two things we don't really talk about in education, so which are the impact of 3 years being learning over Zoom online. How does that disrupt your mental character development and also learning habits? How do you learn music? The other thing I want to talk about is the evolvement of social media, the shape of social media. I remember when I started out, people are talking about Sesame Street making people's attention span like so short. Now look at TikTok. So I do want to say, Gordon, I think a lot of this generation students looking for daily validation, it's a habit of, the likes or the hearts from social medias. And then, so going back, I found this generation's very, very vulnerable, yet very proactive, meaning, as a lot of the panelists said, things I would take for granted, like people tell me this is what you need to do, I would just follow when I was a student. For this generation, they would raise a lot of questions. They would not take everything you tell them as it is. They would ask a lot of questions. So I think a lot to do with the social media opened up their entire antenna, so they have a lot of more information, so they will question everything you taught. Then the same thing is with social media is, during the pandemic, my day job was to work for the Chinese mother company for TikTok. So that's how I understand the entire algorithm, what they are trying to clickbait, the whole algorithm of that. So because of the explosion of social media, and especially TikTok, everything's condensed to 30 seconds. It makes this generation of students, everything is like, feel like the pendulum is always on the extreme side. And then I'm teaching, so this past year I'm teaching freshman class. I realize a lot of them have never dealt being in the room with colleagues, like a room of their peers for the 3 years. So in a way, they're so desperate to have this social interaction, but then all of them seems like missing some kind of muscle memory, how to function in a collaborative environment. And then when they couldn't really function, this trigger is more intense from the previous pre-pandemic generation. And it has dawned on me the other days that this pandemic class is not going away, because we are going to be dealing with a generation of at least like next 10 years of students who grew up with like this 3 years, Zoom vacuum, and how do we help them rebuild this entire learning habit, rebuild the confidence, rebuild the entire character. It's going to be very interesting. Thank you.
I want to add one more thing, and it's about technology, and it's about the prevalence of chatbots, and we hear a lot about AI, but specifically Google Translate and the move towards English as the world language. It means that students who grow up in North America speaking English at home are at a disadvantage when it comes to working in foreign languages, and the longer they wait, if they don't study a language in their early education, the harder it is for them to understand grammar and the way that languages interact. And now that they can just point their phone at the text, they get this sort of surface level. So I think these are also the advantage of technology is they can just point their phone. So you can actually expect that they will know what that word means. But will they actually digest it? And particularly those who have only and will only speak English.
No, I'm just always moved when what the two statements that you just said triggered off to me was, as an educator, being able to differentiate and convey to my students, yes, we've been through the pandemic. Yes, the need for self-expression is great. But as an artist, craftsman, mentor, teacher, we have to also educate the difference between self-expression and artistic expression. So we have to take that thing that they have been thirsting and dying for, let them validate themselves in that, in a nurturing environment, but also point out to them, listen, that self-expression, that DNA that's important, that defines us all, you have to be able to develop that into a thing that holds up under pressure. They're not mutually exclusive, but you have to develop that. That's why you're in school. We're going to help you develop that. And I think we owe that to them as well, to let them know that from day one, as your professors and as your mentors, that's the goal we're shooting for. Not to obliterate that self-expression, but to set some fire and steel on that so that when you become you out in the real world, you don't try to hide from who you are, but you rely on your technique to bolster that up too.
It's really great. I'm going to jump around these questions a bit, just based on what I'm feeling here. This is really great. So, what we're seeing and what we're experiencing and what we're doing in our work with students, what do schools need to prioritize in both their curricula, either undergrad or grad level? What needs to be reimagined or changed? Mo, we discussed, I want to allow time at some point to talk about some of the DMA requirements that we were talking about earlier with students from China and South Korea. But I'd love to know first, what do you think prioritizing, what do you see a need to reprioritize? And if so, what might that be, or change or adapt?
I think it's a massive topic, because I mean each individual in this space is going to have.
Yeah, but from your own experience.
From my own experience,
Can we say anything we want to say?
yeah.
Except Dean, I already told Dean he can't.
Gordon, it might help me.
Okay,
so.
I'm joking.
No, I think when I saw this question that you mentioned before, and I thought about it, and I am going to say these two things. I think programming is huge. Processing how I'm seeing some programs. I had a great chat with Patrick for a second, but finding ways to program everything you possibly can in different elements to give these opportunities for them to broaden their scope. But I think from my own brain is if we can just understand, or I try to understand and assess, how long do I have this student in my space? And then we get to share a space. How long are they there? Is it a 4-year undergrad? Is it a 2-year master's program? Is it a 8-week, 9-week summer program? So I want to make sure I'm going to assess how much time I have with that student. How much information do I believe I can work through with them in that scope? And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's a master class and you have an hour. And so those, for my brain, is discussing how much can I help them and not try to over-help them and give too much information that can't be processed. and then guiding them through an undergraduate program to where the next place is to be. What is that going to happen? What does an undergraduate degree do? What is the trajectory of that degree? What is the trajectory of a master's? In performance, vocal performance. It's always been a big thing for me. So those are the things that I see that still need to be cultivated, because they don't always know. And when students come out, and all of us in our different ways, we're mentors, or we're writing recommendation letters, or they're calling us, where should I go to graduate school? And having the ability to talk them through, and really going back to the simple thing, what do you think you are missing? What do you want to accomplish as you go? So we have to be a discussion with them. I don't know if I'm going off topic, but I'll let it go.
I know I have personally learned a lot from reading memoirs, articles, interviews of professionals. And so I think one of the things that we can continue to focus on is connecting our current students with people actually in the profession. One of the things that I ask all my students in the opera scenes program to do is to identify, based on how they perceive their own singing and what they think they might like to do with their own singing, to identify professional singers who are 5 years older, 10 years older, and with the idea of making some sort of trajectory, not to try to be Renee Fleming as she is now, but who was Renee at 18, 20, 22? What was she singing? What was she doing? What did her life look like? She was working at a law firm. She didn't make her debut for a very, very long time. And she sang jazz.
Can I interject something interesting? So Renee did her undergraduate degree at SUNY Potsdam before I went there. And in my performance class, or actually my opera lit class, I would often play recordings. And the first day of class, I would play, unbeknownst to them, I would play recordings of artists, famous artists in their youths, in their young days. And I would, and of course, I'd sneak Ms. Fleming's senior recital recording in there because it was in the library. And I wouldn't tell them who they were. I would just say, let's listen. What do you hear? How does it make you feel? And it was fascinating. And then I would play and show them who that person became. And I did it because this was an undergrad school, and they were so young. And I said, you're here, but see where they were and where they got to. You can do that, perhaps. But, sometimes it's hard for them to go, oh, I'm here, and how on earth can I possibly get there? But it was a really interesting exercise, and they would literally just, freak out when they found out because it was, everyone was on a journey. And I didn't do it to, make fun of anyone, but, I will say that, it really woke them up. So, Kristen, sorry to interrupt.
Well, thank you for that. The second piece of what I was going to say is I think it's crucial that we continue to impart to our students the idea of being lifelong learners, and not just for fun, but that our craft and our lives, it requires that we continue to reinvent ourselves. And I didn't learn how to do solfeggio until I had to teach in Texas, where literally every public school student learns movable do. I didn't know vocal technique until I was thrust into an Episcopal church job, and my children's choir sounded like me. And I was like, well, you better sing better, girl, because your choir doesn't sound very good. And, the things that we have to learn in order to do whatever is put in front of us.
It's clear to everyone here, this panel and out there, it's clear that we have knowledge and expertise. So, as I understand, and a wealth of it, As I understand the question, what do schools need to do to reprioritize? Accept our expertise in defining how things should be moving. I have these conversations with my colleagues every day. They know, because not only are they in academia teaching it, but many of them are in the professional arena as well doing it. Who could be a better example of what needs to be done for the schools to recognize than those who are actually doing it? I understand that the pandemic, that's why I asked, can I say anything? I have tenure, that's it. I understand that the pandemic reset a lot of things in the private and the academic world. I understand that. We want to get audiences back. We want to get back some of the money we lost from jobs. But I want to be clear that I want to say this properly. Recruitment matters. Students matter. Growth matters. But knowledge matters. And those who have that knowledge that can relate and convey to the students, I would like for the institutions in general to understand that not only is there knowledge and brilliance and artistry, but there's a willingness by their presence to be here to convey that. Enable these people. I see some people, some of my colleagues are here. I'm an old man, so I'm going home as soon as I can. But I have colleagues who are here from the morning till the end. And I know they love what they do, but that takes a lot of energy and a lot of focus and a lot of heart. So I want those people to be supported all the time. If it can't be a larger budget, understand that those invisible hours that they're putting into their jobs is more than just invisible hours.
Thank you. And I think to that, we have to understand, folks, that we need more of us eventually in positions of administrative power. And as one who has stepped into that, and I will say that it's not always the ninth circle of hell. Not always. It gets up to 6 or 5. But I'm joking. If we're not in there, if we don't have the folks like us who understand the needs and the priorities of what it really takes to support the kinds of artists that we need to cultivate, we're just going to be kind of speaking to folks who have different priorities. And so we have to also sometimes make that sacrifice going into, I have to say, I've gone through a mourning period, to be honest, mourning the loss of my artistic self. But I know that my experience and wisdom is valuable in other ways. And so I can shift. But I have gone through that mourning period, and once I kind of recognized it, it was great. I went, okay, now I'm going to do this. But I feel strongly, I'm often in rooms with lots of, no offense, brass majors, wind ensemble conductors, or other folks who traditionally have held positions of authority in music schools. And I think that this is something that we need to also think about. We need more people like us in positions who are making the decisions and allocating the budgets and prioritizing the curricula. So, Mo?
I'd like to share 2 observations. I'm still relatively new to higher ed. I want to point out, I've noticed while I'm directing outside academia post-COVID, pretty much more major regional companies and major summer young artists program are cutting at least 1 week of staging time. I don't know how much time you're having for Brevard, but so far, every single summer program that I've been into, the actual staging time is pretty much between 5 to 8 days until you hit the first tech. I just made my rehearsal schedule for Glimmerglass this coming summer. I know they have 6 days before we get into tech. So, and I'm very conscious of that. In a way, when we are training opera singers, we need to give them process, we need to give them the time to simmer and grow the technique and foundations. But also, I'm also keenly aware of that thinking, and I do not have answer right now. With this kind of changing pace of rehearsal, how do we prepare them, bridge the gap, so none of them, they can have as minimal culture shock as they could when they step into those summer programs. My theory is we need to start, allow them to, or force them to think. They need to stop being complacent, waiting for their teacher to tell them, this is how you sing, this is how you move. And you can clearly tell the entire pedagogy of each program in those summer programs, because there will be singers asking me, just tell me where to move, on which measure I do what. And there will be singers coming to me and say, what is my intention here? I see this character this way, what are you thinking? So I would encourage, so this is just the information we're dealing with. I feel like once the company cut those staging time, they're not putting it back. So this is a new reality, 7 days. And how do I have my own opinion about that as a director and educator, but how do we prepare them with this new kind of crazy pacing and still allow them to flourish as the most authentic artists they are in that environment will be very crucial.
That's fantastic, and on the money. Yeah. So then that brings us to the next step, because not every institution is going to be like Glimmerglass and have those requirements. So as an aspiring artist, not only in the academic setting do I need to establish that protocol, that health, that system that enables me to get there, but I need to find companies where I can grow and have time to do that. Not every company should be where every artist should be. Sometimes it's just that, as you say, I stepped into Berlin and opened the season in the ring cycle, and we did a whole ring cycle in 7 days of rehearsal. Yep. But I couldn't have done that had I not found other places like Seattle, where the rehearsal period was 91 days. So you gotta, you have to know, or you not have to know, let me be clear. An artist has to learn the environments that they need to put themselves in order for them to succeed. If you've never done a role and you step into a company and you have 6 days to prepare it, you better be damn exceptional. And there are situations where you have to be that. But that shouldn't be the initial thrust of it, I don't think, in my opinion. But along with those Glimmerglass, where I was artist in residence 4 years ago, there are other companies that can afford you the time to do it. You might not get the type of money you think you need to get, but what does it have to do with your growth? We're about growth too. So where are those companies? As educators, we need to let those students of ours know, listen, when you're stepping into this environment, they're going to expect this. Maybe you want to do this at a nice, friendly, tumbling tenors place that might give you a little bit more time. That's not a bad thing.
I just want to piggyback for just 2 seconds, but this all falls into, obviously, I'm a stage director, but I do other things. But when we're looking at and listening to incredible about what's happening to the shortening of rehearsals, but also the idea of, we all understand when they do a show at school and then they go to a young artist program or somewhere, and it's like, oh my God, we got to go so fast, and we don't have that freedom. But then it's also sometimes it's triple cast, and then there's and so you really, when you assess How much time each of those artists gets for that stage time, that's the thing. I personally don't double cast at Brevard because there's not enough time. So I do young covers, and so we get them in with. But it's not. I don't think I'm not setting them up for success. That is my key. I am not setting them up for success to give them 3 days to do an opera or a staged, and then there's going to be, because I see I see these artists stacking constantly. So they get there and they're stacking their technique and they're stacking their this and they're stacking their IPA and they're stacking their, all this pressure. And so they're actually not able to live in the moment. They're not able to have that freedom and breathe, which we all want our people to breathe, both as actors and singers. And so this locked, tight sense of, I got to do all these things. So that pressure doesn't help, that expedient staging time, because that's when they're out there without their teachers and they're on their own. And that's so.
I want to get back to Carlene's original question, which is what should schools be doing? No.
I think this leads into it. Yeah, please do.
Because I think many of us feel in our institutions that we are in charge of what we're in charge of, right? We're in charge of our syllabus. We're in charge of whatever students we register for our classes. Maybe we're on committees where we can be part of a group of people. Maybe even we're like at the NASM level where we're able to advocate for more resources for the programs we're trying to build, or to return resources that have been reappropriated for other priorities. But I'm looking at a room full of very powerful people with a lot of really great ideas who may not have the ability in their institutions to bring their ideas fully to fruition. And I'm recognizing too that I'm looking at this printout of this study that many of us clicked on the Google form and put our information about what we do teach and what we are able to offer. And line after line, I'm seeing people who actually offer a lot. We teach a lot. We teach a lot of skills. There was another session earlier in the conference about soft skills, about what students who participate in our programs learn that then pay dividends in their wider life. And I think we can give ourselves some credit too for all the vast knowledge that we do give to our students, and recognize that if we're going to send students into a 6-day program or into a place where they're doing many shows all on top of each other, we can provide them the time and the space to fully flesh out what a translation is, to really learn to count in abstract, and then also to count while also acting, while also listening to the orchestra, while also visually following a conductor. We can teach them how, and in a 8 or 10 week term or a 16-week semester, we can give them time to show up for rehearsal unprepared and give them the boot prints in their behinds and send them home to recognize that in the profession they would be fired or recast or not hired back. And give them the grace and also then the skills to learn and move forward. So I think we are also uniquely poised to set people up for success with the time that we do have. And we aren't required to show up for shareholders. We don't usually answer to a board of directors. We might answer to our upper administration, and we might have budgets that we're accounted for, but it's not the same sort of corporate pressure that we do have time to nurture individuals.
And I think what you also, Kristen, what comes to mind is that it's also the ability to synthesize all of the information and the experience, because oftentimes, it can get very siloed, right? I go to this class, I go to this class, I go to this class, then I go to this, and the time and the understanding about how to synthesize all of that information.
I'm curious, I'm going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you in your own syllabi list the courses that you expect your students will have already had, or that, like, for example, mine says, I expect that you will use the knowledge that you learned in the theory sequence, the musicology sequence, the diction sequence, and your class piano training, because I expect you to accompany your own recits. Like, I'm just curious, how many of you actually list your colleagues' courses that you expect they'll synthesize? It has been life-changing for me, where I can say, I'm going to ask you what that cadence is. I don't care that you remember the name of it, but I do care that you identify it. I don't care that you play the piano part note perfect, but I do care that you understand how it fits with your part and that you know what it's for, that you can look at the language and tell me. And so just that one thing, and most of my syllabi have 8 to 10 course numbers that I know they will have already had or will have soon.
Okay, so folks, you probably noticed in your program there's recently there probably a huge surge of DMA applicants or students from China and South Korea. I'm learning that because I'm originally from China and I was just back home. Actually, I'm still in jet lag, so I'm translating everything in Chinese into English now, so I'm slower than my normal.
Doing great.
I do want to share with my educator peers that there are new policy changes in China and South Korea. Right now, you are not allowed to teach above high school level if you do not have a DMA degree. So that's why you probably notice, like I have MFA in stage directing, but which is a terminal degree in the States. But if I were to go back to China, I can't even find any job. Like I can't even pass pre-screening because I do not have a doctoral degree. So, yes, that means for the next God knows how long, there's going to be a huge demand from China and South Korea for the DMA degrees. And this is purely speaking from my own experiences as an international students whose English is not their first language, who also come from a drastically different cultural background. This personality you see right now is not how I was when I first came here. It was developed when I have to yell at union course members as AD. So I do not. Yes.
So what you're saying is that didn't necessarily, prior to that professional
I was a
experience,
very different person. Yeah.
writing that thesis paper was a bit challenging.
That's the quote of the day, though.
So I do want to point out, the reason why I say that is I see so many specifically students from China or South Korea or Japan struggle in this current setup because, number one, they are dealing with language barriers. I don't think we have provided an efficient way to help them bridge the linguistic gap. Then the secondly is a cultural misunderstanding. So many times, this is also when I learned when I was working as AD in bigger houses. So many times I've seen singers whose English not their first language being dismissed for musically underprepared or simply saying they don't know how to act. And a lot of times not the case. They're just slowing response. And then very, very unfortunately, a lot of times in academia settings, students whose English not their first language are the first one to get picked on. And that instantly shut them down from pursuing this anything further. And then fourthly, this is, I went through the entire American visa system hoops. So I'm gonna throw some random names that doesn't make any sense to you, but when you graduate, you have OPT, then I have to go to O1 visa, qualify as alien with extraordinary talents. I got it twice, so I'm an alien with extraordinary talents. Then after that, go through EB1, which is green card application for aliens with extraordinary talents. Those visa process takes a lot of advanced preparation. So when I look at my international students in the program, I told them, you need to decide the very first day when you enter a program, do I want to have a career here in this country, or do I want to go back to my home country? It's a two different kind of planning system. If you do intend to stay in the States, your entire preparation for your visa starts in the first semester you're here. Because if you start thinking about your O1 visa in your last year of the school, it will be too late, because you need to start building evidence and cases. And I constantly remind them, you do not have the privilege like your American classmates, because they can work at Starbucks waiting tables. Your visa does not allow you to work anything unrelated to your profession. So, and I feel like because there's such a dearth of knowledge in this area, so, and you all know we're going to have this growing demand from the international students group. So I feel like our current training system has not set up a very, very helpful and practical model to support this incoming need.
Really important information, especially for those of us who do have many international students. And I mean, I learned this today, and that's going right back to work with me, because I did not I have definitely noticed an uptick in students going, oh, now I have to be gone 5 weeks this semester while I go do DMA auditions. And I was like, well, what? And now I understand why. So thank you for sharing that. Gordon?
I was just going to say, I was listening to you, and I was just, those aren't things that would normally come to mind. We are aware of it when we serve on committees, and we have to go, okay, how is this person going to be able to manifest through these requirements? And that just astonishes me. It tells me that we have to, I don't know if revamp or certainly we need to rethink and be better aware of each individual as they're coming into this. But the thing that I find is how that cuts on so many different levels. And not only for our foreign exchange students, but our native students here. I had a student from an HBCU who clearly didn't have the highest skill set, because when that student came here, they weren't made accessible to certain things. And I remember, I'm one of those bleeding heart people. I'm that dude. I'm chef on South Park. I'm that guy. I remember telling my student that I was going to be leaving to go to Washington for a couple of months to do this ring cycle. And this graduate student said to me, does that mean you're going to take me with you? Mm. That's the reality. That's the reality. That's the reality. And we have to prioritize that to our institutions, that in many instances, not only do they need to rethink how they do the cookie cutter mold for what passes for a DMA degree or passes the bar to get into a certain program, but we have to start reprioritizing that individuals require not only different needs, but different time frames. And if a kid that we really like, that really we believe in, is obligated to be pushed out after 2 years, maybe we need to give that kid another year or find some mechanism that allows them a little bit more time before we boot them out there and expect them to take those deficiencies into a competitive job market.
There's a lot of work, right? It can get very, very overwhelming. Like what do we prioritize? Maybe the question is like, how do we prioritize rather than what? Can you think of examples of best practices or thing? It could be programmatic, it could be, curricular, that you see or that you're developing that you feel has been successful. They're good examples of best practices in helping students achieve the things that we're talking about, that autonomy, that sense of responsibility to their own development. Are you seeing examples out there, or are you involved in good, best practices that you could share? What's working? What's working?
What's working? when I saw this question in my head, somebody else go.
Okay, I'll go. We don't cast first-year students at all, ever. They're required to take the Acting for Singers course prior to or concurrently with their first casting. We often have a scheduling conflict if they are education majors of any sort, where the Intro to Music Ed course in their first year is offered opposite the acting course, which means they should then take it the first semester of their sophomore year. If they do not, they are not eligible to be cast, and we've drawn a hard line on that, meaning that sometimes we don't get to work with some of the more vocally talented students because they also want to major in music ed. It has also allowed us then, by drawing that hard line, to work with the faculty advisors and to work with the scheduling of courses and when certain things that aren't offered all the time are offered in order to develop a sequential program. And so our sequential program is acting first, which is primarily a spoken class, then scenes in English, then scenes in foreign languages that are longer and involve more people. Usually the scenes in English are duets. And then somewhere in the midst of that, they are eligible to be cast in the main stage, usually in an ensemble role first and then later on if they've gone through the sequence. I'm not saying that the sequence captures every single singer in the school, but the majority of them, by going through this sequential development, I think when I see them in the rehearsal room, they've also had the time and the sequence of the skills. Whatever sequence it is that you have developed, stick with it. It is working. It may not be ours, but the order in which we present the information is vital. And grabbing someone just because they might have talent and throwing them in doesn't always work. So that also means that we must choose repertoire for only the students we have, not the students we wish we had. I know I'm preaching to the choir. And that the repertoire that we choose should also, over the course of the 2 or 4 or however many years we have them, provide them access to the majority of what we offer. That means new, old, popular, Western dead white guys, people who are not Western dead white guys. And so by the time they leave, they are able to interface with the business and the wider art form because they know what order to go things. So if they only have 6 days, they know what to do before those 6 days start. And we've given them a time and space to do that. That's what's working for us.
Are you ready? Okay.
No, I was. We, if you go to our website, you can see the curriculum roadmap, and I agree with you that clarity is beneficial for both sides, for the professors and also for the students. What I find personally that works, I think the best in my situation is studio class. When they come in on Fridays from 12:20 to 1:10, and some of them get up and perform and some of them sit on their hands, they see their peers. Sometimes I feel like I'm that, the adult voice that says wonk wonk in Charlie Brown. That, you know that one? But when they see their peers and they see the level of the ones that work at it, that really work at it, the ones that aren't just practicing the practice, that helps too. That helps a great deal. Not necessarily for them to be excellent, not necessarily for them to be whatever, but there are people that are coming to this school or our schools for a number of reasons. And there are some that are walking the walk, and there are some that are waiting for permission. And they need to see that nobody that's serious about pursuing this craft is waiting for permission. They're students. They see it. When they see their peers doing it, waiting, it's like, who's going to sing today? and somebody pops up and does it, who's going to, I'll do it, and somebody pops up and does it? Y'all know the book Scott Peck wrote, The Road Less Traveled? Yeah. Favorite book, one of my favorite books of all time. He talks about having graduated and gotten his degree, and he knew he was going to be the next great psychologist and the next great this and that. And he said, my friend gave me the most valuable lesson. He came over to my house one time early, 6 in the morning, woke me up out of bed. We got in the car. We drove through the neighborhood. We got to the access ramp just before he got on the highway, and he pulled over to the side of the road and stopped. Didn't say anything. So Scott Peck says, what are we doing? What are we sitting here for? And his friend says, you see all those cars on the highway going down there? They're going to work. These kids need to go to work. We can help them go to work, but they need to see that their peers are demonstrating what work and moving forward means.
And that also builds community.
Yep.
I mean, that builds an important network. I mean, how long have we known each other? I know. But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I know. I don't know. When was that? Anyway, but we went to school together, and those relationships, and we have other school chums out here, and those relationships that we build, and I mean, I've probably gotten every single opportunity or job, I mean, I can say every job or every opportunity I've ever had was from someone I had known before and thought I was, you know, a worthy person to do that, and I, you know, because I didn't burn bridges, and I didn't, you know, and I invested, and I was part of communities, and that also is a very critical part of this.
I think even that's going to be even more the case today because of entrepreneurship. The people you're going to be in class with now might be hiring you. For the issue of entrepreneurship, that's even more important now because the people that you are going to school with might end up hiring you.
I mean, this may not be exactly what's going on, but I was so inspired and so moved by so many of the young singers that came, and composers and librettists, and pianists and musicians. The younger group that came here, and seeing them just zoom around this area, bounce around, that energy that you just look across the courtyard and you're going, wow, I was that once. And you remember those things, but seeing them, you know, and it really did. I went, well, you know, I'm not going to bring this up to this organization, but how cool would it if you know, I just sponsored a young somebody in this. I'm going to sponsor somebody next year. I'm just going to bring them with me if they could fit in. Ooh. And so if we all took that opportunity, I don't know, Pam, if you remember, I was trying to get one of the the pandemic Zoom things. I said, why don't we all just get somebody in and let them sit in on this forward development. Let us sit in on it so they can just see what's happening. Because that's what we all need to do. And that's this transition. They got to know where it's going and what we are, or what the university system is sending them into. That's the other part.
And people are thinking about it.
Yeah. And then so that cultivation, instead of, I'm done, you go, you're done. Master's done, go, good luck. Have a great career. It's hard. And that transition's where I do a lot of stuff and see a lot of...
And again, it's relationship building,
yes,
building community, valuing valuing each of us as individuals and what our own paths might be, what our own success is. You know, I was gonna include this, like what does success mean at our institutions? And you know, I asked this it was the first question I asked the faculty that I work with when I first got my job, and I got a lot of pushback from that question, because I think I am really pushing that success is really in the eye of the beholder. It's in the eye of the person. It's their life and their education, and we need to empower them to take responsibility and ownership of that, and we need to respect that. And that is not traditional in our Western European classical training. And sometimes that is viewed as being disrespectful or, against the grain. And that is, but I'm determined. And when I see students who begin to own that autonomy and see that light in their eye, that's my joy. That's the joy that replaces the other stuff I used to do. And I think that is where we're struggling oftentimes, is between the models that we were taught in, the good and the not so good, and how is that different, and not resisting that. Yeah, Mo?
Yeah, I'm feeling the jet lag, so I apologize if things are rambling. So I do want to say classical music in general, our old model has been built on scarcity mentality. I remember when I was a young artist, in pretty much every program I went to, the first day, they would tell us only like 2 out of this entire group will actually have a career. So I think when you keep saying that, it creates a massive insecurity and a kind of very toxic culture about feeling like if I don't tear this person down, I will never have a chance. I think we need to dismantle that in our training process. I have, outside my opera circle, I have all of my Chinese friends who went to college here. They are all like venture capitalists, Wall Street people. So when I tell them this statement, they just look at me and say, "Can you imagine Harvard Business School or Wharton Business School saying only 2 out of our MBA program can find a job?" And they said, that says something's wrong with your current model, which makes me really start thinking about, which like a lot of you folks are saying, creating a community that empower each other. I always remember what my own directing teacher said to us the first day of class, saying, it doesn't matter how well rehearsed your show is, I can always tell the temperature of your rehearsal room by how they function on stage. So I would like to encourage all of us to think about what's the temperature we're bringing to each classroom, as it will be translated into the next wave in this industry.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. I would also offer that what success looks like at 22 and 24 and 28 is very different. And the ability of artists to continually recreate themselves and reimagine themselves, that some of our most vocally talented students will start checking boxes that look like traditional success very early, and then they will bump up against the reality of, I'm getting on a plane with a 2-month-old that I'm leaving at home. And success doesn't look the same anymore. I'm coming home after a 6-month contract, and my now 8-month-old doesn't know me. I have left my partner, and my relationship is not the same as when I left. Or I am in a relationship with a fellow performing artists, and our careers are taking different trajectories, or God forbid, operating at different levels, and there's jealousy, or there's the expectation of my partner is a Wagnerian baritone, and I'm a coloratura, and I'm already singing everywhere. And my partner is going to have to wait for his voice to grow up a little bit. And then there's also the reality of, at 22, I can sleep on someone's couch and eat ramen for every meal of the day and be thrilled to sing. At 28, that's less interesting. And at 35, I'm giving the middle finger to that way of living. And I want a car and a mortgage and a dog and a yard and regular work hours that can be predicted sooner than 9 p.m. the previous day when the stage manager emails me the schedule. And there's also the reality of then health concerns and how different things that happen to our bodies, obviously the singers in the room understand this, but it happens to all of us, even those that don't sing. The way that our bodies work at 22 is very different than 35 or 52 or whatever. And the ability to self-assess and then reach out for help. And several of us have talked about community. We can tell our students right now to look around the room and just say, these are the people that you are going to continue to reach out to. These are the people, when you need something, you're going to go on the Facebook group for the alumni of your school, and you're going to celebrate the successes of those around you. And when you need a letter of recommendation, you're going to look to the person who maybe wasn't so successful in opera class, but they are now the dean of the School of Music that you're applying for a job at. And because they found their success in administration, even though they never could sing in tune, they are so good at this other part. So I think that's really important to continually talk about to our students as well.
And celebrate.
And celebrate for ourselves.
Celebrate.
That success looks different at different stages of life.
Absolutely.
I love that. Go ahead.
No, it's listening to you all. It's brilliant, and I'd love to hear it from everybody else. But the idea of success. I mean, it's so broad, and it's so. And what we get to do is in our roles in being mentors and being teachers and whatever, we get to share stories. We get to share stories, and we get to share our lives and our history. And the older I get, there are some stories. I have a lot of stories, and I have a lot of connections and a lot of people that have, and sharing those with the people. And the point is that we're still here. I'm here today. That's it. I mean, I'm just here, and I'm grateful, humbled, and honored, and all those lists of things to be able to still be in it. And the thing that's different in this world today, and especially with the young singers, is that, from my younger days, it was, me against the world. Me. Yeah. But I see them together. So it's more of us against whatever. So in that us is so much stronger and so much healthier for the long run to be us versus me. Because that puts you in a place of ego and judgment. And, the idea of being serenity. The definition of serenity is the state of being peaceful, calm, and untroubled. Untroubled. And that's where we would like all of everybody to be. So, thanks.
Golly. Gordon?
No. I think what I would say is what has been said, actually very eloquently. So, the only thing that I could add would be, in my definition of success, is, and I understand this is different for everyone, but control isn't the right word, but the awareness, the self-awareness that the trajectory that I place myself in, when I land at a place, I want to be able to look at myself and love the person that I see. If that trajectory costs my spirit and my soul too much, then I want to make sure I vector in another direction. Because what I sing and what comes out of my throat and my spirit and my soul is an amplification of who I am, not a total personification of who I am. I want to make sure that my trajectory, when I check each of those steps, do I like what I see?
We just have a few minutes. Is there any questions anyone wants to ask? Yes.
So we talked a lot about the pace of academia, and how, realistically, as a student, I feel like I'm expected every semester to produce a certain amount of arias, and at the end of that semester, you list it on your jury. But in reality, it can take years for an aria to get in your voice. How do you combat? How do you bring the realistic pace of learning repertoire like that into academia?
I am not in the academic scenario. I interimed, 5 different universities as a 1 year. That's, I don't know if I'm material for you. But all I can say to you is you are where you are today. Be there today. I mean, no one's looking at you and saying, why aren't you singing this? And so you just do it as it is. And we take you for where the artists are in that moment.
I know that person that asked that question. So I'm going to be this is not aimed at you, but it's aimed at everyone like you. I'm the old man on the lawn. I'm like, this is my get off my lawn moment. Not everything is transactional. Not everything is transactional. Learning is not transactional. It makes you better. You don't invest time to get a specific thing. You invest time because you love that thing and it's the path you want to choose to take. Don't be so damn transactional all the time.
Well, and I would just offer that in terms of learning, you learn the arias as well as you learn them this term, and then some of you will get to keep singing those arias your whole career. And at a certain point, you won't sing them anymore, either because your voice has told you you shouldn't anymore, or your soul tells you you just don't anymore. And I have certain piano pieces that I played when I was, and I played them so much differently now. And I'm grateful that I've been able to, and things I've conducted as well. I'm so grateful to get to come back to things. So you'll come back.
Over here. Oh yeah? We have one more question over here.
So we talked about success at different ages and everyone's success being personal. What is a sentence or a short thought of advice that you have for undergrad or master's students looking toward the future, whether that's personal or professional?
You may not be in control of what happens to you, but you are 100% in control of what you choose to do, how you choose to respond to what happens to you.
I always remember, I probably will pronounce his name wrong, Michelangelo, like the architect. I always say there's always an angel in every marble. So trust the angel in your marble and dedicate to carve and refine that on your daily basis. But just most importantly, remember, you got the angel in the marble.
Oh my gosh, this was such a treat. I cannot tell you. I'm so grateful to every single one of you. It's been a delight. I hope we've all been inspired, taken something home. I know I have some good nuggets. And thank you all. And I know we have an announcement that needs to be made.
But before the announcement, join me in thanking all our panelists and our moderator. Fabulous session. Thank you all.